Our character now has HP and a way to die and a way to showcase its HP, but it doesn't really have a way to fight back yet. So we can't like jump onto this guy and kill him like a platformer game oftentimes would have. So let's fix that today. All in all, it's a pretty simple thing to implement for the most part. So we can just go Ctrl B with this thing selected to find it in our content browser and open it up. What we need to do is we need to have some sort of collider that will recognize when we are being jumped on. So that is to say that it doesn't really care when are we being collided on down here at all. It's just going to be a collider that exists kind of around the head area. And we can just add in a sphere collider to do that and put it, well, around the head area. As easily as that. Now by default this should be enabled with overlap events and just overlap everything dynamic. And then if we go into the event graph with this sphere selected, we can scroll all the way down and here we will have a on component begin overlap event. This will be an event that is very much like the actor begin overlap, but it will only work in response to something specifically overlapping this sphere component. This actor itself doesn't really have any other overlapping components that can be triggered with this, but maybe some of the child actors that we make of this will have a sword, and the sword will have a collider box to deal damage to the player or something like that. In which case we want to specifically know that, hey, this is our kill sphere. If the player enters this, that means that the enemy is the one being damaged. Any other components that might generate overlap events will not trigger any sort of death to this enemy. In saying that, it probably makes sense to not put this in BP enemy 1, as we are doing this right now, but instead go to our base enemy, because mostly every single enemy we're going to want to be able to jump on to kill. So if we come up here in the top right corner, we can open the parent class of this blueprint, which is going to be our base enemy. In there, we can set up the sphere collision instead. Just put that roughly where the head is going to be. And we can scroll down and on components begin overlap. Here we get some information on the overlap components, the other actor, so the actor that did the overlapping with us, the component of that actor that we were overlapping with, the index of that, whether or not it was from a sweep or and then the sweep result. Don't care too much about those last few ones. The most important thing here is the other actor, because we only really want this to run in response to if that other actor is equal to get player pawn. If for any reason anything is not the player pawn but still overlapping with this thing, we kind of just want to do nothing. Only the player is allowed to kill this thing. So we add in a branch, and only if this is true do we even do the rest. Now we also will need to know if the player is on its way down, because if we're jumping up and overlapping with this, generally you wouldn't consider that to be stomping on an enemy, and you probably wouldn't want that to kill this enemy. So we also want this other actor to cast it to our character. And the reason that we're not casting it to the player character, which we could do and would kind of function as also executing the same thing that we're doing in this branch, is just to build good habits. We need to get something that exists on the actor class, that being the character movement component's velocity. We don't need to access anything that is specifically added in our player blueprint class. So we don't need to cast to it. If you need to cast, always cast to the most generic tier of your blueprint or class hierarchy that you possibly can. Especially if you can cast to any of the Unreal native classes, the things that Unreal just gives you, because those are C++ classes, which are much less expensive generally to cast to than casting directly to a blueprint for a couple of different reasons that for now don't really matter. But it's a good habit to get into, to when you cast, try to say, okay, which class do I need the information from that contains the variables or functions that I need to access, and only cast up to that, instead of just casting to exactly the player character in this case. Then, as the player character, we get the character movement component. So if we just scroll all the way down, it'll be in here somewhere, get character movement. And there we can get the velocity from that. It's just below my taskbar here, but it's the yellow one. And here we just want to check, hey, the velocity, are we moving downward? So we can just break this velocity into its x, y, and z components. The x and the y, I don't care about. I don't care about how much I'm moving left or right or forward or backward. I only care about how much I'm moving up or down. And I care about this being less than, or equal to, I suppose, but it's effectively always going to be less than a value of 0. If our velocity in the up and down direction is negative, that means that we're actively going downward, being pulled down by gravity. So let's do this. And if that is the case, this component is being overlapped by the player pawn, and then the player pawn's velocity in the downward direction is less than 0. We can just, for now, destroy this actor. You'd probably want to like drop some coins or something like that. So maybe spawn in a gem. That actually isn't a bad idea. So spawn actor from class. We made like a gem at some point called a pickup, I believe. And the spawn transform for that will just be, well, let's split the structure pin. We'll keep the rotation and the scale just at defaults. And the location for this gem will just be the get actor location for whenever this actor was in the world. And let's also make our character just do an extra little jump, which is separate from the whole jumping system code that we have written for him before. So what we can do is just get our character reference here, and we have this thing called launch character, which has x, y override or z override. We don't really care about the x and the y. We only want to override the z. And we can just put that all the way over here as well. And give this z just some amount of value. You can actually get this from the character movement component if you wanted to. Just get the z jump velocity. And if we then split the structure pin on this character launch, we can hook up this z into there, meaning that we're always going to be jumping the exact same amount as a normal jump would be. But because we're not tying into any of the jumping code that we have, we're not really influencing things like the jump counter system that we have set up, or even Unreal's built-in jump counter in any sort of way. So what is it going to do now is it will spawn in a pickup, it will launch our character up, and then destroy this enemy. And it's going to be able to do that for every type of enemy that we made, because we made this in the BB base enemy. We'll come back to this in a moment after we've tested out that it works. But if we go into enemy number 1, we'll see that we still have the sphere component here, and we can just fine-tune this a little if we wanted to. I'm going to move this down ever so slightly. And for the most part, that should be fine. Let's run the game and let's try to jump on this guy. And it works. He died. I jumped up a little and he now has become a gem, which I can pick up, no problem. If you find your jump to be a little too weak as a response to jumping on a character, we can just get our z velocity and multiply it by some value. Let's say this will be twice as strong as a normal jump, so we really feel the fact that we're bouncing off of this. Similar to how we maybe needed to tweak the double jump a little bit, it can be useful to just say, okay, you see, there we actually properly feel the fact that we bounced off of it. Maybe that's even a little too much. Maybe we want to go like 1.5. This is the type of thing that you can endlessly keep tweaking and tweaking and tweaking until you feel okay about it. 1.5 seems roughly okay here, and we have our gem. There's a couple of things that we can tweak about this though. Number one is we're always spawning the exact same thing. So maybe we want to promote this to a variable so we can choose on a per enemy basis what they will spawn when they die. That is a possibility. But maybe some enemies we also don't want to launch the character when they die. So are we going to really complicate this with adding a variable here and then adding a branch with a variable here and then maybe adding even more code with a bunch of branches and variables, and it just becomes very messy very quickly. All this, component overlap, all blah blah blah, that works fine for everything. Destroying this actor also works fine for pretty much everything. It's just this in-between little bit here that seems a little... Maybe you want to be able to change this on a per case basis. So this is where we change this into a function like we did a bunch of times in a bunch of other blueprints before. Now we can say with this spawn actor and this launch character, as well as this launch z jump and the multiplication, select it, we right click this, we collapse this to a function, and we call this onEnemyKilledResponse. And you see that it has two input pins here, and one of which is a character object, the other one is the character movement object. So we only really need the character reference. We can just get the movement component from the character reference. So we don't need that to have two separate inputs. So we can say this is our player reference. Now this means this is the default handling of what happens when any enemy dies, which is fine. We can disconnect the onEnemyKilledResponse self 3 pin. But every single enemy blueprint that we have now can give its own implementation to this instead. So if we go into, after we compile this, go into BP enemy 1, we click on this override button, we get all of the functions that exist within all of the parent classes. You can see there's a bunch of functions that exist within Actor, where we also have a override here for onEnemyKilledResponse. So we can make a function for that. Now this specific blueprint can either replace whatever the parent version of this function was, so these couple of nodes here, or just add on to what is already there. The cool thing about that is that this parent blueprint will just call the onEnemyKilledResponse, and depending on which actual child blueprint, which actual enemy that it is in the world, it can have wildly different responses. Maybe this one turns into a gem, but maybe a different one, instead of spawning in a gem, we would get rid of this, and it would spawn in a bomb. So after you kill this thing, you need to make sure that you get out of the way super quickly. Maybe you have a slime enemy, a classic RPG type of enemy, and when it dies, instead of spawning in a gem, it spawns in 2 or 3 versions of itself that are a little bit smaller. And so on and so forth. This is where we go back into this inheritance hierarchy. Because we have this blueprint be a child of a different blueprint, the parent can set up frameworks of code that the child blueprint itself can then add or define functionality for. This is no different from our begin play. Begin play is just something that gets added to the framework of the actor class itself by Unreal inside of C++. And then any blueprint that we make can just add on functionality to the already existing begin play function. Exact same thing for this overlap or this event tick. These are things that are made to exist on the actor class. And then everything that is a child of the actor class, which is most of the blueprints that you're going to be making, will be able to add in their own code in response to when those functions are called. So just to show you that, we have all of this code set up on the base enemy for running this onEnemyKilledResponse. If in BP enemy 1, I just let it do all that, but also print a string that says, hey, I was killed. And let's make that just red or pink, because why not? Now when I run this, it's going to run that, which also prints out, hey, I was killed. It's pretty small on screen right now, but it does do that. If, however, I just duplicate this BP enemy to make a BP enemy 2, and I go into its onEnemyKilledResponse, removing this print string, and instead I spawn a particle system at a location, so just get actor location. Do we have any default Niagara systems in here? Fountain lightweight, something like that. It's going to, whenever I kill enemy 2, spawn in this particle system. We'll talk about particle systems a little bit more in the future. And to show you how this works, I'm going to make this also use a slightly different mesh. Just this one probably will do. That's fine. So this one is going to start chasing us because he doesn't have any patrol points. But we can see if I jump on him, he spawns in whatever the base implementation is, which is spawning in that little gem. But he also spawns in that particle system that specifically that class did. You will notice that he didn't say anything about, hey, I'm being killed with a print string, because that is the specific implementation that this guy has, and he prints a string, does not spawn a particle system. If I go back into BP enemy 2, and I also remove this call to parents, that means that now the original version that the BP base enemy class itself, which is this one, has made, will no longer run. That orange node is just running this version of the code. Now that that orange node has been removed, it's going to no longer make me jump up. It's no longer going to spawn in that gem. It's only going to do the new version of what I told it to do, which is spawning in that particle system. However, the other one still does do it, and the gem didn't spawn in there because it was on a slope and the spawning probably just failed. If I do it here, he should spawn in the gem without any trouble. Hello? Oh, I just immediately overlapped with the gem the moment he spawned in. That's funny. Either way, we can now kill enemies, and we technically have 2 different enemies that are both killable and do their own thing in response to death.